Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're talking about a very morbid and entertaining, episode. Inventors whose inventions killed them.
Well, it's morbid in the fact that they died because of the thing that they did. But in some cases, these were really beneficial things. Like they were like really good. Like they provided a lot of value for the rest of the world and history and medical and engineering, whatever it happens to be. But in some cases, it was just downright dumb.
Yeah,
I'm going to start off with that.
I want to hear it then. If you're going to start off with downright dumb, I think that's a good way to start.
Downright dumb. Here we go. So, and I'm sure this guy's at the top of every
Stop
list.
laughing at this.
I'm sorry. It's funny because I watched the video. So This is Franz Reichelt.
Okay.
So Franz Reichelt was a Austrian-born tailor. So you might ask, what does a tailor invent, right?
That's a good question. What might they invent?
Well, this guy back on February 4th, 1912, decided he was going to make a wingsuit and jump off of the Eiffel Tower. Yeah. So first of all, it's 1912. You're a tailor. You don't understand aerodynamics. You don't understand like how fabrics work. You don't understand like any of that. So apparently he was doing this with dummies. He would take a mannequin, put the wingsuit on it, throw it, it would crash. And so on the 4th, he decided he was going to do a dummy. At the last minute, he changed it to him. Family and friends are trying to tell him not to do it. And you can actually watch the video. Kids, don't do this without your parents' permission first. It's a grainy video from like 100 yards away, but there's a video of him with his foot on the railing. And he's like, I know I'm going to die, but I can't back down now. You can just tell that what was going through his mind. And he's wearing what looks like a black like cloak that was all like up above his head and connected to his arms. So they're showing him standing on the railing, and then they cut to, he jumps, he goes straight down, and then they cut to like
it just doesn't work at all.
Then they cut to a wide angle, and he literally dropped like a stone straight down and died pretty much on impact. So it's on YouTube because there was actually a film crew there with like old school cameras. But it's just like, it was.
So first off, now our listeners are going to go watch that video more than any of our YouTube videos ever been watched.
Watch our YouTube videos first.
Also, would you do that flying squirrel suit stuff that they have now? Have you seen those people do that?
I have. It just seems like if I had a parachute on and like I was away from like they do it really close to mountains and stuff. Like maybe over the ocean. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So that's my number one, like just plain old dumb.
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to go a different direction here, and we're going to talk about our friend Marie Curie.
Ooh, Sklodowska made a name.
Go check out that episode. If that was good, if you really want to get the details, we did a full episode on her. Born in 1867, died in 1934. This one does not fall into the dumb category like yours did. But, Madame Curie was the first of 4 scientists who got the Nobel Prize twice. So that's pretty impressive. Renowned physicist and chemist of Polish origin, and had exposure to ionizing radiations for prolonged, meaning like years and years of time, as her experiments involved materials like radium and other cool radioactive stuff. So back then, didn't know about the harmful effects of radiation, right? So no good. She was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, which is the cause of her death. Even her personal possessions were exposed to radiation, as she carried radium in her pockets, because who doesn't do that, and kept it in her drawers. And for that reason, her century-old notebook and many other things have been preserved in lead-lined boxes. And if I remember correctly from our episode about her, even her body is like enclosed,
highly radioactive.
Yeah, because her body's so radioactive still. So very sad.
I'm gonna
great inventions.
Great inventions. So she did some amazing work with X-rays, and she built these trucks that were like mobile X-ray units during the war. So huge
and
impact.
Her daughter too, right? Wasn't her daughter also maybe a Nobel Prize winner?
Yeah, huge impact on society. But kind of a not fun fact. So they made a movie called Marie or Curie. It was an Amazon Prime, one of those movies that Amazon does. terrible. Like it was
Not a ringing endorsement.
Oh my goodness gracious. Like they focused in on was the fact that she was kind of like a home wrecker kind of thing. Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Apparently, like I don't know if she was a home wrecker or like she had like a scientist that was like a younger scientist that was helping her out, and she had an affair.
Helping her out.
Yeah, they really focused on the bad stuff, not the good stuff. So don't watch it. Waste of time.
Okay. All right.
My next one, this is going to be a guy by the name of William Bollock. So,
I love that. Yes.
So what he did was he invented, not invented, but he revolutionized, I'll say, the rotary printing press in 1863. And I mean,
so not to be confused with our friend Gutenberg, who we did an episode on the printing press.
Yes, this guy made a better version of it. So, and if you think about it, so this is another big impact. I mean, the printed word, communicating, reading, just getting the news out there. I mean, this was a pretty big impact on, society and the world in general. In 1867, on one of his own printing presses, his leg got cut. So, what is your leg doing anywhere near the printing press?
Feels like
first
an
of
OSHA
all
violation.
It got crushed in some gears, which just sounds terrible.
Oh my goodness,
which led to some gangrene, because apparently back then you got gangrene. And he actually died during an amputation surgery, because like back then it was like, take a couple shots of whiskey, bite down on this piece of leather, and we're going to saw through your leg to take it off. So unfortunately, he died actually during the amputation surgery. But again, big impact on the world with his invention.
There we go. My next one, never knew this, really interesting story, is Francis Edgar Stanley.
Ooh, do I have this one?
You don't have this one? Oh my goodness. Born in 1849 and died in 1918. Not a super long life, but not super young at least. It was a steam engine based car developed by Stanley Motor Carriage Company, founded by Francis here and his twin brother Freeland Stanley. Anyways, before entering the automotive business, this is just kind of a fun fact. F.E. Stanley and his brother triumphed in the photo studio business in New England. Stanley patented the first airbrush to colorize photos, which is pretty sweet. They also set up Stanley Dry Plate Company for mass production of dry plates using their new patented machine technology. So why do I think that's cool? Well, they were tired of the photography business, so the Stanley brothers sold all of their photography technology and whatnot for 500,000 smackers to George Eastman, who founded Eastman Kodak. Yeah, so
go making those connections,
right? Check out our episode on George Eastman. Good at buying up people's technology, apparently. So what happened to this guy, Francis Stanley? Well, first off, his designs were influenced by George Eli Whitney's steam engine, obviously the steam engine based car. In 1898, they were invited to Boston's first automobile show, which is cool. And the cars were tested for speed and hill climbing abilities.
They did really well too, didn't they?
They did awesome. With a speed of 27 miles per hour. The Stanley Steamer set a top speed record of that was the only car to make it to the top of the hill as well. So this is when they made the Stanley Motor Carriage Company. In 1906, they broke a world record for the fastest mile, clocking in at 127 miles per hour back in 1906. So
I'm afraid to drive a new vehicle that fast, let alone something with hard rubber tires and no suspension. Right? And
so unfortunately, in 1918, Francis crashed into a woodpile while driving his Stanley Steamer and trying to maintain a distance from a farm wagon traveling alongside the car.
Too bad he didn't invent seatbelts.
He should have invented seatbelts. Maybe his brother came up with that afterwards, but he crashed into a woodpile and died.
I think the biggest problem here is, were their names Francis and Freeline?
Freeland.
Could you imagine you and your brother? Hey, Francis and Freeland. That's the travesty, is their names.
It really is not. I mean, maybe back then it wasn't so bad, but yeah, not great.
Oh, goodness.
One more from you, Luke?
One more from me. So this one is Alexander Bogdanov. Bogdanov, Bogdanov. So he was Bogdanov. There you go. You're the lexicon.
I am.
So in the 1920s, he was doing all kinds of experimenting with blood transfusions because who doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
And to the point where he actually convinced Lenin, I think it was, to actually create an institute of blood transfusion.
Like a whole institute about this.
And the crazy thing was, I mean, this was before they were able to really understand like the different
I think it was Stalin
that types. Stalin, yeah, not Stalin. Lenin was so they thought that, I just take my old blood out and I put new blood in and I feel better. Well, that might be the case, like if you have some kind of blood disorder, but in general, you shouldn't just be removing your own blood and putting new blood in thinking you're going to be
younger. Did you
younger.
say why? Because he thought he'd be younger or be like a fountain of youth almost.
Yeah, that's exactly what he thought. And I'm guessing he was lying because he was quoted as saying, my vision has improved and my hair loss stopped and I lost weight and blah, 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 blah. It's like, so first of all, taking blood in and out of your body ain't got nothing to do with your eyeballs. I'm just saying.
What do I know?
And hair loss, if you're a baldy, you're a baldy. It's just, you just got to deal with it. Keep that hair combed forward,
that's right. That's
not backwards, James. So this cat performed 11 blood transfusions on himself successfully. Apparently, the last one he didn't work too well because he took blood from a student that had malaria and tuberculosis.
Ironically, Luke, the student survived.
I know. What are the chances? And my guess is it wasn't the 11 previous blood transfusions that hurt him. So kind of crazy, just like literally like not knowing blood types or like testing for diseases. That just seems crazy to me.
I know, that really is crazy. All right. So before we move on, it's time for us to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Who do we got?
No one. No one. But we have shout outs, and I would prefer
those are even better.
Dollars any
money
day.
And fame and fortune.
Want to advertise on one of the world's most popular and premier engineering podcasts, hit us up. But shout out number 1, Dave W. from Norfolk, England, of course, named after Norfolk, Virginia.
Of course.
Studying mechanical engineering at Open University. We make his trip to work faster.
Nice.
I mean, probably not actually faster, but it feels faster, and that's what matters. He's also suggested an episode on sustainability of natural gas and the pending introduction of hydrogen to make the carbon footprint better and ultimately more sustainable.
We kind of did an episode on those, didn't we?
We touched on that a little bit, but I don't think we focused on it enough.
Okay.
I care about my carbon footprint.
You do.
So
that's all you do is talk about your carbon
added
footprint.
to the list. I do talk about that a lot. Tony T is our second writer.
Oh, Tony T.
Tony seems like a super nice guy. Messaged us on Facebook almost 3 months ago, thanking us for the stickers that we sent. So let that be proof to you that the stickers do exist.
But it takes 3 months.
I mean, I'm not good at the Facebooks, that's what happens. But I did fail to give Tony a shout out. So here you go, Tony. Go Mud Eagles. You'll know what that means. Also, I apologize for not autographing the stickers by request. I'm terrible at these things. I'm going to work on that, but I've literally not seen Luke in person in over a year at this point. So next time we get together, we're going to sign some of these stickers and we can get them in the mail to you in another 8 months.
Roughly.
So hopefully you all want some stickers. If you do, if you have some suggestions, if you want to just tell us how great you love this show, how great you love the show, how much you love this show, all of these things, just email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love the reviews. And as always, you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast.
There we go. My next one, Luke, is Otto Lilienthal. Fun fact, he's the man who inspired the Wright brothers. I think I remember us talking about him back in that episode. He was the first person to take a safe and replicatable gliding flight. Before Lilienthal's successes, flying was considered to be impossible and a dream for fools. So altogether, this dude constructed 18 types of gliders, 15 monoplanes and 3 biplanes, and he took over 2,000 glider flights. So during his last flight, obviously, he lost control and went into a nosedive, which fractured his spine. while he was lying in the hospital, this is what they say.
I feel terrible laughing right now.
His last words were something, meaning sacrifices must be made. So apparently he felt good about his life choices and the progress that he had made for gliders and flight, and, was satisfied to be dying.
Okay, my next one, Andrew Thomas.
Andy. Is it Andrew Thomas or Thomas Andrews?
Thomas Andrew. My dyslexia kicking in. Wow. So Thomas Andrews. So this cat was a naval architect. Check out our episode on naval architecture.
That's right.
At some point. So he helped design the famous Titanic. He wasn't the only designer, but he was one of them. And he's quoted as saying, a ship of this size must have at least 46 lifeboats. Of course, we all know the story. There was only like 20 or so. So like they were like, oh, this thing could never sink. So what do we need all these lifeboats for?
Right.
So he's actually remembered as a hero because he was on the maiden voyage. And after the Titanic struck an iceberg and began to sink, he spent hours and hours helping people into life jackets and to get onto lifeboats. And the last thing supposedly he did was he walked into the first class smoking room and stared at a painting that was titled Approach to the New World. And this is a picture of the Titanic.
You know that? He died. Who's
my guess is one of the people that got on the lifeboat.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, or Kate Winslet. Yeah. So after she let him die. So it's called The Approach to the New World. I looked up the picture and it's a beautiful picture. And apparently it was a big like fresco picture on the wall. And it was the Titanic coming into port. So yeah, you built the Titanic and you died on it.
That's sad. That's a bad one. My next one is Louis Slotin and others. So this is a sad one, but also kind of a nice end, I guess, but not really. In 1946, 8 scientists, including this guy, Louis, maybe, Louis, who previously worked on the Manhattan Project. Interesting. So check out our episode on the Manhattan Project. I feel like I have all these callbacks this episode. Was working on an action that would bring into close proximity the two halves of a beryllium-coated sphere and convert the plutonium to a critical state. Well, that sounds like radiation to me. And in fact, it was. So Slotin and his team had performed this experiment over 24 times at this point, but the specific time, a screwdriver that was keeping the two halves from touching, I don't know who approved that. A screwdriver was keeping the two halves. Oh my goodness. It slipped out, accidentally setting off a fission reaction, which released a really bad burst of radiation. Now, here's where it's it's still super sad, but here's where it gets a little better, I guess. Realizing what he had done, Slotin heroically covered up the material with his body while the others were made to run out of the room and get to safety. He died on May 30th then of 1946, 2 weeks after the exposure. So I'm guessing that was a very bad 2-week stint.
So I'm going to stick with Manhattan. I'm going to do this one really quick because I got another one. This was Harold Hartoon. I'm just going to, his name's Harry in quotes.
Okay, Harry.
His name is Harry Daughtlin, Daughlian Jr., 1921, 1945. He was also an American physicist working as part of the Manhattan Project team on August 22nd, 1941, during a critical mass experiment. He dropped one of the tungsten carbide bricks onto the plutonium bomb core. So these guys were a bunch of clowns working on the Manhattan Project, apparently. So the mishap, again, similar to yours, caused a reaction. He knocked the brick away and unsuccessfully, he actually touched the brick with his hand. And he did stop the reaction from happening because he grabbed the brick as it was falling, but he was exposed to massive amounts of radiation and he died 25 days later. So these two stories, they're different enough that it wasn't
eerily
just the
similar,
same person.
But yeah.
Where was like the protocols for safety for the Manhattan Project? Come on, people.
And it's not like they didn't know this stuff was dangerous.
Yeah, they knew it was bad.
They were designing it for that
to make it more dangerous.
Yeah.
To turn it into a bomb.
Oh my goodness. My next one before we take our next break is so this is kind of kind of along the lines of an invention, and it just entertained me so much that I wanted to tell it. It's Li Si is how I'm going to say it. 280 BC to 208 BC. So he's said to be one of the 2 or 3 most important figures in Chinese history, which is interesting. He was largely responsible for the creation of the institutions that made the Qin, Qin, how do I say that?
Kui.
No.
Kui?
I don't think so.
Kui Jin, right?
I don't know. Dynasty for the first universal state in Chinese history. So
this is terrible. What happens next?
He was chancellor under this dynasty during the 3rd century BC and devised something called the 5 pains, alternately known as the 5 punishments, which was a torture method for criminals. The victim's forehead was branded, then their nose was cut off, then their feet were cut off, then they were castrated, and then they were executed, as if you weren't going to die from all those other things. So after the death of Emperor Qin Kui Shi Hong, this guy was then, and his friend Zhao Gao decided to override the emperor's wishes and install their own chosen prince as the successor. His friend Zhao then turned on Li and said that he was a traitor, having him executed with the 5 pains method that he had first invented. So that's just a pretty terrible one.
Very terrible.
Okay, so before we continue on with hopefully something slightly more cheery than that, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So I think this rant may have popped up somewhere else once before, and we're going to be talking about it later in this episode. But I heard in the news, local here in Pittsburgh, James, that we are getting the bird style scooters.
Chin,
is that what it's called?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Apparently, that's the correct way to say the name.
Yeah.
Okay. So apparently we're getting the bird style scooters here in Pittsburgh. These things have been, these are those ones where they just put them on a charger, you get an app, you ride it somewhere else, and basically
they're a menace.
You leave it in your neighbor's backyards or you throw it in a pool or in the lake or whatever. So these things have been an absolute travesty for like San Francisco, Portland, Austin, like all these cities that implemented these personal mobility devices. They're coming to Pittsburgh, and I don't know if they're here yet, but if there was a petition in Pittsburgh to prevent these things, especially with everything opening up back again now that the pandemic is kind of slowing down and things are getting back to normal, it'd be really nice to walk down Shady Side or down the Strip District or the South Side and not have to step over a scooter laying on the side of the road that isn't charged, that nobody cares about. So I'm hoping that this doesn't happen. And this ties in later on with one of my honorable mentions when it comes to personal mobility transportation.
All right. I like the tie-in. I agree. Also, I saw them at Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, they were there.
You know what's cool about that place? It snows a lot. You're going to use the scooter in these hilly snow areas? I don't know. I think they're stupid and dull. Anyways.
All righty. My next one is Thomas Midgley, Midgley. So
this is a unique one.
It's a very unique one because this cat has more than 100 patented inventions. And he did all kinds of stuff with like chemicals and additives for gasoline, I think is where it was. He was a chemical engineer and mechanical engineer.
He did a bunch. He made Freon 12 for refrigeration and stuff.
It did all kinds of stuff. So super intelligent guy, lots of contribution to society. He gets polio in the 40s.
Not because of his invention.
Not because of his invention.
Okay.
So polio didn't kill him. So he gets polio. So, and if you know polio, a lot of people don't know what it is nowadays because it's been cured for a long time. But basically, it's a disease.
We got our vaccines.
Exactly. It's a disease that affects your muscles and you deteriorate. And basically, you slowly become disabled to the point where like you need a wheelchair. He invents this crazy contraption with all these bungees and cords and levers. And the idea was it would help someone with polio move throughout the day, be able to get out of bed, be able to function. Unfortunately, the summer of I hate laughing when
I hear you laughing.
In 1944, he got tangled in his own invention,
in his polio system,
and strangled. Like, how does that happen? Like, first of all, like, where's your wife or your kids? Like, if you have a debilitating physical disease and you need the support of a contraption, you should probably have a caretaker keeping an eye on you a little bit. So yeah, it's just, yeah. So he was strangled by his own invention. So my guess is they didn't make any of these after that.
Yeah, that's sad. Bad way to go. My next one, this one falls into the stupid category, Luke. I'm sorry. I guess it must be Carol Sutik. Karel.
Oh yeah, so I did see that.
1947 to 1985. So not that long ago. Like I was alive when this happened.
Yeah.
So not even 40 years old. Gosh. Oh, basically the dude invented a fancy barrel. Gonna put it out there. The Canadian stuntman went over Niagara Falls in 1984 and survived illegally, and it cost him $46,000 in fines that he had to pay, as he didn't obtain a license to perform this crazy stunt. Fortunately for him, he recouped a lot of this money from the sales of his stunt videos that he had put together from going over the falls. He wanted to make a museum at Niagara Falls to popularize himself a little bit and talk to an investor for funding further. I don't think that really got off the ground. But in 1985, to build up his fame a little bit more and to show off this amazing barrel that he made, he decided that he would roll off of the Houston Astrodome and into in another self-designed barrel in front of an audience of 35,000 people.
And he was supposed to hit like a little water bucket.
There was a water tank below inside the Astrodome. So he rolls off the roof, and unfortunately he miscalculated a little bit. The barrel clipped the edge of the tank, and this guy's skull was fractured and his chest and abdomen were crushed, and he died during this stunt in front of 35,000 people. This was so ridiculously crazy that Evel Knievel actually talked to him and tried to talk him out of the stunt because he said it was the most dangerous thing that he had ever heard of.
Folks, if you have Evel Knievel himself telling you don't do something, I'm guessing you shouldn't do it.
Don't do something. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Unbelievable.
So you stole one of mine. So I will move on to my next one. My next one is, where is it? This is Sylvester Roper. So Sylvester Roper was actually credited with the builder of the very first motorcycle. It was called the Roper Steam Velocipede.
That's a cool name.
It's an awesome name. I wish they still called them velocipedes. But these were steam-powered motorcycles. So first of all, you're on two wheels. We already talked
the size of this thing.
Well, that's the thing. So it was a motorcycle and it had this enormous steam combustion thing just like hanging off of the side of it. It's just like, how is that like conceivably like a thing? So he was doing all kinds of races. He was killing everybody that was on a pedal bike because he was competing against pedal bikers, and he crashed. He died of a heart. He was 72 when this happened, supposedly, but they said the cause of the death was a heart attack. So they don't know if he had a heart attack and then he wrecked, or he wrecked and then had a heart attack.
So interesting.
They're not exactly sure, but hanging a giant steam combustion container with super high pressure and on a motor, but he didn't die of that thing exploding. He just died driving his invention.
All right. Ugh. That seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
My next one, another bad idea. Henry Smolinski, 40 years old. I'm getting worried about these 40-year-olds doing dumb things and dying because you know where I'm at.
Yep.
Died in 1973. Smolinski here took the wings from a Cessna 337 aircraft and attached them to a Ford Pinto.
With duct tape, I'm fairly certain.
It basically seems like it. Yeah. Well, if you hear the rest of the story. So, of course, he's making a flying car. So the car was known as the AVE Miser. It was manufactured by Henry's company, Advanced Vehicle Engineers. He, along with his friend Hale Blake, took it for a test flight and, of course, died in the crash. So the modified Pinto had detachable wings. It was capable of flying at 12,000 feet above the ground at 130 miles per hour in theory. The dashboard was modified with additions like fuel pressure gauges and altimeter, radio navigational equipment, all that stuff. In theory, it could go more than 1,000 miles in, That's pretty cool for a car plus flight. So this Pinto craft, as we would say, struck the top of a tree. So it was starting to work and crashed into a pickup truck before bursting into flames, a witness recalled. Henry's fatality closed the doors on the AVE Miser, and it was supposed to be featured in a Bond movie, and it never was because it exploded.
So I feel like this is one of those, he was way ahead of his time, because
I've seen
I honestly think that if you could make, because a Pinto was a super inexpensive vehicle, and a Cessna, as airplanes go, is a super affordable small airplane. You take this and you turn it into a car that can fly. I mean, that seems, I think secondarily, there's the whole idea of you need to be a licensed pilot as well as a licensed driver of a car.
Flying cars are coming out now.
But I'm just saying, he's way ahead of his time.
Yeah,
because
he was.
I think it's a great idea, because I would not be surprised if in our lifetime, I'm not going to say it's common, like it'll be the rich people, but there will be people flying in and out of airports with flying cars.
There's ones going on now. Yep.
But like, you can buy them like right now.
Well, no. I mean,
but it will happen in our lifetime where you can buy them, go to, fly in and out of Arnold Palmer Airport here in Latrobe and drive home, and then fly down to, Florida.
Arnold Palmer Airport.
So I don't have any more, but I do have 2 honorable mentions.
I have one and an honorable mention. So let me do my next one, and then we'll get to those honorable mentions. Horace Lawson Huntley, 1823 to 1863. He was a lawyer and a merchant by profession, so that's scary. But he was also a Confederate Marine engineer during the Civil War. Notice those years. He always had a thing for submarines, and so he was trying to help build them. He developed an early hand-powered submarine, the most famous H.L. Huntley, named after him. He helped in designing and building 3 different models, and was ultimately killed by his third and final. His first submarine was built in New Orleans, and it was intentionally sunk in 1862 when the city fell to the Union because they didn't want to give up that technology. The second submarine was sunk in Mobile Bay in Alabama. And then he funded his own third submarine himself, and therefore it got named after him. And in October of 1863, though he was not part of the crew, Huntley decided to take command during a routine test. The vessel again sank. Huntley, along with 7 crew members, died in the waters off Charleston, South Carolina. When the Confederacy recovered the sunken sub, few of the crew members were alive still, but unfortunately Huntley had died. So, I mean, I'm glad at least some of the crew was still alive, and he was the one that died, There's like certain things that I don't think I would do like as like an experiment, like underwater and like in the air, like plane wise. Like I'll wait until it's tested and proven, and then I'll get on the submarine and I'll get in an airplane. But that's like Sir Richard Branson going into space here in a couple days, and the Beezer's going up as well.
These rockets blow up. I mean, we've seen these things landing and not being successful landing. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
One more fun fact about the sub, though, Luke. The raised vessel, after it sank and they brought it back up, was later used in the first successful sinking of an enemy vessel by a submarine in naval history.
I think I remember that somewhere else we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. 2 honorable mentions for me. I'll do them back to back. And if you have any. So my first one, I mentioned it in my rant. So this is the guy by the name of Jim Helsland.
Okay.
He was locally known as Jimmy, apparently. Whatever
to his friends.
Yeah, to his friends and buddies. So he wasn't the inventor. I was confused whenever I heard the story. He wasn't the actual inventor of the Segway. He actually acquired the Segway company from Dean Kamen.
I remember this.
Kamen in December 2009. So he bought from the inventor. So here he is in his English countryside, Yorkshire state. He's driving around on an all-terrain version of the Segway, which is those terrible like leany things that like you have zero control over, and if you sneeze you end up crashing. So apparently he was like trying to make way for someone that was on the path, and he actually drove the Segway off of a cliff.
I remember that.
Remember it was crazy. So not the inventor, but the owner of the Segway company. And then my second one, and this one guy didn't really invent anything specific, but Jim Fix, F-I-X-X.
Not Jimmy again?
Not Jimmy, Jim. He is, I'll say, credited with starting the jogging trend after he published several fitness books that included the complete book of running. He died of a massive heart attack while jogging.
This is why I don't exercise.
Ironically, he took up jogging because he was worried about some hereditary, heart problems that they were having. And yeah, he actually died of a heart attack at age 35. he died of a heart attack at age 43.
I hate that dude. Thanks for making me run.
Yeah. Sorry.
I have one more honorable mention as well, or at least a bonus one here. The first trip into space, Luke, by Wan Hu. So according to Chinese legend, Wan Hu, a local government official during the Qing Dynasty, and I got that one right, aspired to travel to the moon. So, and I think I talked about this one in our fireworks episode. So check that one out in the way. If you want to do that,
what do you do, right, James? Yeah. How do you get there?
The use of rockets had been reported all the way back to 1232 in China, back when the Chinese were at war with the Mongols. And as a result, it was possible that Wan Hu had access to rockets. So he wanted to get to space, Luke. He attached 2 kites and 47 gunpowder-filled rockets to a chair, obviously.
Who doesn't?
And he asked 47 servants, so he's living a good life, that's a lot of servants, to light the rockets at the same time. According to the legend, there was an enormous bang, and when the smoke cleared, the contraption, along with him, had disappeared. So it's unclear if the story's true or not.
I'm sure he made it to...
But a lunar crater is now named Wan Hu in his honor.
I'm sure
and
he
I
made
assume,
it there, right? Of course.
There's no proof to me that he didn't. Maybe he's
exactly. So I do have 2 more that were at the bottom of my page I didn't see. And these are not honorable mentions, but these are people that, and I think we should do a whole episode on this.
Do them fast.
People who invented stuff that they might regret. So James Albert Bonsack invented the cigarette rolling machine.
Bonsack.
480,000 people die in the United States alone from smoking each year. And my last one, we should do a whole episode on this, is Carl Benz. He invented the car. He's credited with inventing the car. So Carl invented it. 1.35 million people die each year in car accidents. That's globally. So just are there inventors who made something and then they were like, yeah, I wish I didn't do that because it killed a lot of people?
That's fair.
I think that's a good episode. Maybe not them getting killed, but people that they killed using their devices.
Deadliest Inventions.
Oh,
that's good. That's a good title. All right.
Perfect.
If any of you have any suggestions for the deadliest inventions, any other subjects you want us to look into, if you just want to ask for some stickers, if you want to sponsor us with some big cash money, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see ya.